Alrighty, dimension 3, reality or reification or domination, if you like organizational theory. This is about attempts to make relations of power appear inevitable and natural. It's also about what we consider to be the real world. So it's about practical knowledge, our natural attitude, what seems reasonable or unreasonable, reification, which is the making of reality, and this idea of truth versus truth, which is about, he talks about religion and whatnot in that one, so we'll probably leave that one alone. Manufacturing consent, conformity with institutions, and ideology. This section, I think, is worth bringing in a couple of other authors. So you've got the domination from Fleming and Spicer, you've got reification from Haugaard. Foucault talks about it around discourse, or a term that he calls knowledge power, with a slash in the middle, meaning knowledge is power and power is knowledge, not as in if you have information, but if what's accepted as knowledge in the world is what you want people to accept as knowledge, then you have that's power, that's fixing meaning. And Clegg says that in a different way around meanings becoming fixed. And Berger and Luckman use different terms again, tools of what they call universe maintenance, which means continually making reality out, constructing it the way you want it to be. And they also talk about defining deviance, so that you can say this is normal, this is reality, and this is not. And these people are not. These people are deviant and should not be like them. So it's actually part of defining reality, because you're showing examples of what it is not. It's quite a powerful thing. In those days, they used to put people in asylums all the time. Okay, here's an example, a simple example. Here is two different views of the future of gas in Australia as part of the Energy Network. The Climate Council, obviously concerned about the climate, who say that the future of gas is small and dwindling, and BP, who would like us to think reality is that that gas is important to Australia's energy transition. And what we've got here is people trying to construct a narrative that influences what more and more people see as reality. Depending on where you stand, you're going to try and create a different reality, or you're going to see a different reality, or live in a different reality. There's this term called the dominant narrative, which means that when most people think something, that's the story, the narrative that we go by, that most people go along with. In this unit, we're going to try and find counter narratives, or non-dominant narratives, when we say, well, what if it wasn't like that? Or, yeah, but who's saying that? And is it just what somebody wants us to think? Voting at the next election, I'll be going, what's the point? They're all as bad as each other. But is that what they want me to think? Anyway, the narrative is the story, the plausible story that people go along with. It doesn't have to be truth or clear-cut scientific data. It just has to be plausible, and you have to be able to live with it. And that's possibly the most powerful narrative or story. So how are narratives constructed, and how are they legitimated? So what's the narrative here? Obviously, one nation will protect Australia. That's the story that they're telling. But is that true? For me, for most people, what kind of Australia are they protecting? Are they protecting a white Australia? are they protecting Pauline Hanson's view of Australia, or are they protecting the conservative rights of America's view of what Australia should be like? Yeah, what Australia? And really, does she care about protecting us at all? But that's the message, that's the narrative that her voters are hearing. So we have mostly, this is Chevron Corporation and their stock price after bombing Iran. Oil price goes up, price of Chevron stock goes up. Yeah, they're worth a lot. The dominant narrative in terms of big oil and governments is that we need gas, we still need oil, we need this and that and the other. A climate protest is a counter narrative to this. Let's do it a different way. Hegemony is when there's only one narrative and everyone believes it. Gramsci talked about hegemony, which he said was when you had coercive power, so dimension 1 power, plus the ability to secure consent, which is typically dimension 3 and 4 and 2. That was a really interesting paper if anyone wants to read it. Now, please watch this. It's only a very short video. It's probably less than 2 minutes. It is on Facebook. Sorry. Anyway, what she says is you do not have to make people believe the lie. You only have to wear them down until they no longer believe anything at all. And this was the idea of Orwell's 1984, where they kept changing who was their enemies, and they had the Ministry of Truth, which basically made up propaganda. It's also what Russia did with their propaganda. Let's say with Hitler, he got everyone to believe the lie that Jews were bad, blacks were bad, disabled people were bad, communists were bad, all this. But now you can see in America that they're going for the confuse people method of, like nobody believes anything anymore. You can't believe anything that you read. And this is the conditions for total domination. And for me, this is if we get our information ecosphere, the internet basically, if we let it get so garbage with misinformation, disinformation, deep fakes and everything like that, we're going to end up with total domination, because all you've got left is, okay, I have to trust this guy to make decisions for me because they are the only ones who know. And that is not that is not critical thinking. And it's not democracy either. Anyway, please watch Hannah Arendt. She's amazing. Narratives can not only write the present, create reality now and into the future, they can rewrite the past. And you may have heard of revisionist history, and we actually are trying to re-understand in a more, let's say, fair and accurate way the history of colonization of Australia. But you can also rewrite history in a farcical way, which is when Trump pardoned all the people who violently attacked the Capitol on January 6th, thinking that he had really won the election when he hadn't. When you read the newspaper, notice the words they use, because it's language, it's metaphor, it's myth. These all act to create our worldviews. So, for example, in this article, which is another opinion article, he talks about Richard Hames, or whatever it says there. A recalibration of language that transforms resistance into terrorism, domination into peace, and sovereignty into existential threat. When Hamas fires rockets, it's decried as barbarism. while Israel's 56 occupation of Palestinian land vanishes from view like the morning mist. Apartheid walls are called security measures. And this is the same, what's he call it? Linguistic jujitsu that comes, when we call like the war on drugs. Just the use of the word war in that sentence enables us to bundle together all the things that happen in war, and it allows us to use much harsher and more violent measures to try and solve the problem, instead of, if we did as Portugal did and reframed it as a health problem, then it's an entirely different set of accepted ways of acting and making the rules. So myths are really important narratives. They're narratives that are stuck around for a long time, and they're really stuck. So they're really quite dominant. This is a brilliant paper. It's a 3 chili, which means it's difficult to read, but it is brilliant. And it's on how there are 3 myths of corporate environmentalism, corporate citizenship, and corporate omnipotence that work together. And they talk about how exactly they're legitimized in workplaces and what they do, what the effect of them is, where do they come from, how do they maintain them and legitimize them. And what they actually do is stop us from fixing the problem, because, hey, corporations have got it. Myths can take decades to fully develop. So this is a 20-minute video, but this guy's quite humorous. But he takes us through probably 100 years of the auto industry, from when there weren't any cars on the streets and pedestrians owned the streets, to now, when what they said when they called it jaywalking. A jay was a stupid person, so you're stupid if you walk on the road. But so it's about the appropriation of road space, or the commons, for cars. Now, agnotology, the word of the decade. It's the study of deliberate, culturally induced ignorance or doubt. And it's also a study of why people deliberately create culturally induced ignorance. This is how, through control of media. Here's one negative example. Well, at least I think it's negative. We have the manosphere doing all this damage, but the way that the media works is to put these people inside a bubble so they get all this reinforcement. I don't particularly admire the documentary, but it's just an example. Also at stake in our construction of reality is diversity, I think, and honoring of really diverse languages, diverse cultures, diverse knowledge, things that haven't been written down and put on the internet. And the use of AI is just really accelerating that diversity of knowledge collapse, because what it does is it takes a really complicated and complex and rich thing and write it in 100 words. And to do that, you have to generalize, and that is a huge loss. And I don't know if we've talked about the dangers of optimization, and why I think we did in week 1, that complexity is much more resilient. To have complexity, you have to have diversity. And not just so that we can all survive, but in honor of of other cultures and other languages and other peoples and other ideas. That's all for this bit.